Thank you all for coming. All of you, I guess, on the camera. I'm looking at the camera now. Hi, everybody online. So how many of you have any experience with Feldenkrais? No, Mirane has, and Bob, and James. Okay, great. And I'm sorry, Janet. Hi, Janet. Nice to see you. Um, so for those who are new to it, I'll just say a couple words about it. And then I think the best thing to do is it's experiential learning. So we'll just dive in and start doing some lessons. The lessons are generally 45 minutes to an hour. But because it was hard to choose which ones to teach, and because I wanted to kind of offer a fairly broad spectrum of lessons that might be good for musicians, I thought I'd do 3 shorter ones. And we can kind of gauge how that goes as we're going. And if people want to go a little bit more in depth, we can do that too. So I'll get your feedback after the first one. So Feldenkrais is it's movement, education, learning. I sometimes describe these lessons as like movement meditations, where you sink a little deeper into paying really deep attention to what you're doing. And Feldenkrais, he was an Israeli man who was a physicist, a mechanical engineer, and also an expert in judo. So he kind of brought all these influences to bear in creating this method. He started developing it to deal with a knee injury just for himself, and recovered so dramatically that other people started asking him for help as well. And it just flowered into this larger method. He famously said, if you know what you're doing, you can do what you want, which I think is a good description of how it would be good for musicians. You know, I think we add a lot of unconscious effort and work to our work playing musical instruments. And to be able to kind of tear away all the distraction and extra stimulus and like sink really deeply into paying really deep attention to what we're doing is really good for musicians. It's kind of what we do in the practice room in a lot of ways, but this is a lot less goal oriented, I think, than practicing for a performance or practicing to attain perfection on an instrument, something like that. This is really just a spacious kind of exploration that I think is a good antidote to a lot of the extra work and effort that goes into playing an instrument that's often unconscious. So, and because it's kind of unconscious, you're not really trying to direct yourself from your mind. It's really you just pay attention and things shift. And so this idea of kind of allowing change to happen is pretty significant as well. One thing I was thinking, just trying to think of what would be good for a wide spectrum of musicians, I wasn't sure who was going to be at the workshop, is addressing breath, whether you're a wind player or not. I'm a flutist, so I tend to think a lot about breath. But breath has a lot to do with the organization of the ribs, which are a place that we hold a lot of tension and a lot of extra work. So if you can I remember in my training, one of my friends who was a physical therapist was asking our teacher, who rarely gave like definitive answers to anything, said, are the ribs really the root of all evil? And he said, yes, basically they are, because we can just kind of stiffen in our chest. You know, we call it the chest, which is like a really stiff kind of sounding word. So if we can get more fluidity and ease in the ribs, the arms work a lot better. Then, you know, just the balance and the way you can the way you balance your head, the way you approach your instrument, everything changes. So I thought we'd start with a breathing lesson. That would work for everybody. And if you haven't done Feldenkrais before, I'd say just a couple words. Rest anytime you want to. This isn't about achieving anything or stretching or strengthening. It's really about just exploring. So if something feels uncomfortable, do less. If you have a question about any of the movements, feel free to ask. I'm going to ask you questions a lot of the time, but you don't have to answer. It's rhetorical kind of, or just to get you to pay attention. There's not, in fact, I'd rather you don't answer because everybody's answer is going to be different. And so you don't want to influence the other people. I'm not going to do the movements because it's also not about demonstrating a way to do it. It's really much more about your attention turning internal. So anybody have any questions at the beginning before we begin? Okay, great. So go ahead and lie on your back. And first of all, just notice how you're lying. So you can have your legs just kind of, comfortably spread a little bit, your arms at your sides. If you have glasses, you might want to take them off just because that might help you be a little more comfortable. Great. And just to begin with, notice how the back of yourself contacts the floor. So you have parts of yourself, we're not completely flat. Parts of yourself will sink into the floor more than others. So like, for instance, the two heels contact very firmly. The ankles, not so much. So just notice, in fact, your two heels might be a little different from each other, the way they contact, like a different place on each heel might be contacting the floor. Same with the lower leg. Sometimes people's calves contact very firmly. Sometimes they don't. And it might be different from one side to the other. So notice any differences from one side to the other. Notice behind each knee, comparing the two sides, drawing distinctions. Behind the upper leg, the thigh on the right side and the left side. Two sides of the pelvis. And notice, like, especially with your pelvis, is one side pressing more into the floor than the other? Sometimes we just have some rotation in the torso that usually there's going to be one side that has a little more weight on it than the other. And continuing up to the lower back, notice how that's usually, there's a space there. It's usually curved away from the floor a little bit. And then notice where the back comes into contact with the floor again as you move upward with your attention. So like which vertebra, which ribs are contacting the floor? And how do the ribs contact the floor on the right side of the spine and on the left side of the spine? Do you feel differences? Can you sense your two shoulder blades contacting the floor? Perhaps they're not, perhaps they are, perhaps it's different on one side than the other. And notice another curve behind your neck. The back of the neck is not contacting, but the back of the head is contacting fairly firmly. But what point on the back of your head contacts the floor? Does it feel like it's in the middle of the back of the head or a little more to the right or left? And you're not trying to correct anything, just neutral observation. Just notice how things are for you now, because then you'll notice how things change as the lessons go on. So gently roll your head a little left and right so that point of contact rolls across the back of the head. Just as far as you can, really comfortably. No stretching, just a really easy, simple movement. Notice if it rolls a little more easily to one side or the other. And then leave the head in the middle. And notice how your two arms are lying. Hands facing which direction? Does one arm feel closer to your torso than the other? And begin to draw your attention to your breathing. So notice what happens when you breathe in. In fact, fill your lungs fairly full. Take a slightly bigger breath than normal. When you do that, do you feel that your sternum raises, the breastbone in front? And does the spine stay on the floor? So do you feel like a deepening of the chest as the lungs expand? So take another nice big breath. See if you can feel how the spine and the sternum actually are moving away from each other. Notice what you feel on the sides, any kind of expansion in the ribs on the sides as you breathe in. Just get to know this movement. The expansion of the chest as the air goes in. And then once you feel like you have some familiarity with it, the next time you breathe out, don't let any air in, but expand the chest in the same way. Can you do the movement without actually breathing in? And then let it go. Try breathing in again. Nice big breath. See if it was similar to what you did without the air coming in. Go back and forth a couple times like that. And notice when you don't let the air in and you expand the chest, does the abdomen draw in a little bit? Good. So just take a pause and just let your breath come naturally and normally for a moment. And then take a nice big breath in. And as you then hold the breath, don't let any air out, but contract the chest as if you're breathing out. So the air has to go somewhere, that pressure has to go somewhere. So you might feel it when you try that your abdomen expands. Good. So try it. Anytime you need to take a breath, anytime you need more air, go ahead, let that air out, take a new breath. But try this a few times. So you're expanding the chest, taking a nice big breath. And then without letting the air out, you're contracting the chest so the abdomen expands. And the abdomen expanding, often we think of that just expanding forward, but you can also think of it expanding downward toward the pelvic floor, backward, into the floor, into the sacrum. See if you can sense it expanding in all those different directions. Great. Just pause for a moment. And then take a nice big breath and hold it and just seesaw this movement back and forth. So you expand the chest and then expand the abdomen. And you can do it fairly, like fairly large movements or whatever feels comfortable. And as you get used to it, speed up the pace a little bit. See if you can go kind of lightly and quickly back and forth. And if you can do that, this is one of the ways in which you can sense your diaphragm and the movement of the diaphragm. You can almost, sometimes you can even hear it kind of sloshing back and forth because the diaphragm is an involuntary muscle, so we can't actually control it. This is one way to get a sense of it. Great. Pause for a moment. And then a few times, just expand the chest and then expand the abdomen. And this time, don't hold your breath. Just let your breath come naturally. And see if you can keep breathing and do the seesawing back and forth and just keep the natural rhythm of your breath coming. So these are movements of breathing, but they actually can be decoupled from the actual act of breathing. It's one thing that Feldenkrais lessons like to do is disrupt habitual patterns of movement. And so you can see that these are all parts of breathing, but they're not really necessary. So you can actually shift things around a little bit. Great. So let that go and roll onto your front side. So you're going to lie. If it's comfortable, you lie with your forehead resting on your two hands on your front side. And if not, you can organize the arms in some way that feels more comfortable for you. So if possible, the forehead. Yeah, like that. Yeah, that's great. Good. And the feet can be long. You could just have your toenails on the floor. That's comfortable. Feet spread, whatever feels comfortable to you. So now do the same movement in this position. So you're expanding the chest, expanding the abdomen, and we're going to be doing this in a few different positions. So you can do it in whatever configuration you'd like. You can breathe in, expand the chest, breathe out, expand the abdomen, breathe in, expand the abdomen, breathe out, and expand the chest. Hold your breath, or just do the movement completely independently of your breath. So just do several movements back and forth, expanding the chest and then expanding the abdomen in this position, and see how it feels different. The front of yourself is constrained against the floor, so there might be more movement. You might find more movement in your back. Try skewing it a little bit as you're doing the movement too, so that when you expand the chest, you're expanding it a little more toward the upper left. And when you expand the abdomen, you're expanding it toward your lower right hip. So kind of like drawing a diagonal line across yourself with this expansion. And this is one example of a use of attention to just shift your movement in a subtle way, using the breath. You pause for a moment. Take a couple of breaths at your natural rhythm. And then try the opposite. So you're going to expand the chest, but expand more toward the upper part of the right shoulder, and then expand the abdomen more toward the lower part of the left hip. Again, like drawing a diagonal line across yourself, across the torso. And then go back to just the middle. So just expanding the chest evenly and the abdomen evenly, and see if that feels a little simpler, a little more direct. And let that go and lie on your back and rest. And as you're lying, just notice if there's a difference in how the back of yourself is contacting the floor. You might notice changes in the ribs on either side of the spine or the shoulders or the way the legs are lying too. Yeah, and roll your head a little left and right. See what that feels like now. If there's any difference. Great. And roll to lie on your left side. You can lean your head on the floor or on your left arm and draw up your knees so that there's kind of a right angle between your hips and at your knees. So the thighs and the torso make a right angle, and then the upper leg and lower leg. So your knees are kind of coming directly forward from your hip joints. Both knees bent. Yeah. And if that's comfortable, if it's not comfortable, then you can go ahead and modify for yourself. Yeah. Bring your right hand over the top of your head to take hold of your left temple. So over the top of the head, not in front, not in back. You're just kind of going to lift your head from the side. Yeah. I will demonstrate this. You can lean your head on your left arm. So left arm could be long above you, or if it's not comfortable, you can put it in front of you, like at shoulder length, something like that. Yeah. Thanks for asking. So just lift the head a few times with the help of the right hand. So yeah. So you're kind of bending your torso, if you think of it that way. The ribs on the left side press more into the floor. And the ribs on the right side come together a little more. And the right shoulder and right hip joint come closer to each other. Good. So just leave the head lifted a bit and do this movement of seesawing. So you're expanding the chest and expanding the abdomen, but with the head lifted a little bit. See if you notice any difference in, does the head go down when you expand one and go up when you expand the other, or does it not change its movement? See how that feels for you. And rest your head whenever you're tired at all. You can rest the head and try again. Also, if any of these movements are uncomfortable in any way, you can do them in your imagination, because a lot of what Feldenkrais is about is nerve impulses, not so much actual movement. It deals directly with the nervous system. So if it's uncomfortable, you can just imagine it. So again, with the head lifted slightly, you're expanding the chest and then expanding the abdomen in whatever configuration, correlation with the breath that you'd like. Great, and let that go and lie on your back again. And notice if there's a difference. We've only done this movement on one side. Perhaps there's a difference between how the two sides are lying right now as a result of that movement. And then lie on your right side. Same position, so you're going to draw up the knees. Lean your head on your arm if that's comfortable, or on the floor. Bring the left hand over the top of your head. Take hold of the right temple and lift the head a few times with the help of the hand. And then just leave it lifted somewhere that's comfortable for you, not too stretched. You're not pulling on your neck too much. And begin to do this expanding of the chest and then the abdomen in this position, and see how that feels. Does it make your elbow move at all in space to do this seesaw movement? Bless you. Good, and just explore that as much as you'd like, and then you can rest again on your back. You can notice if it's any different on this side from the other side. And again, notice how you're lying. See if there's any changes that have taken place in your contact with the floor. Maybe just try the seesawing movement again on the back and see if it feels different. Great, and let that go and just rest. We'll do one more variation, which is this time you're going to come to your hands and knees. It's like sitting, yeah. And what you're going to do is going to be, you can have your hands and knees on the floor, but put the top of your head on the floor in between your hands, like the crown of your head. And if this is comfortable, yeah. So really try to think about the top of the head if you can, not the crown, not the forehead. Yeah, great. If that's comfortable. And if you want to, you can lean on the elbows instead of the hands. That's fine too. So begin to do this movement in this position. Expand the chest, expand the abdomen. In fact, this time, think about expanding the chest as you breathe in, expand the abdomen as you breathe out. I really like this movement because of the way it uses gravity. So if you come to sit on your knees, on your heels again, so you're vertically oriented relative to gravity. And if you think about how you move when you breathe, you know, the ribs lift a little bit. They kind of swing out and lift. And then, so if you're going to take a nice big breath and then you let go, you know, it's a sigh, right? Gravity pulls the ribs back down, and the gravity actually pushes the air out of your lungs. When you're in this position with the head on the floor, it's the opposite. So actually the lungs fall upward, you know, because you're upside down. So they fall upward, and it's actually almost easier to take an in breath than an out breath. So just try it one more time and just see if you can sense that. So the ribs kind of fall open upward as you inhale. And then it's a little bit of work to push the air out because they have to climb downward. One thing Feldenkrais does often is use gravity really strategically. And changing our orientation to gravity can make a big difference. Great. So yeah, when you're ready, just let this go and rest on your back again. And one more time, notice how you're lying on the floor, the contact you're making with the floor. And let your breath come at its natural pace, allowing the inhalation. Maybe there's a little pause, and then the exhalation, maybe another pause. And just notice the movement. See if there's been a shift in your ability to pay attention to everything that's moving in the act of breathing. And then gently roll to your side and come to sit and then come to stand. Just stand in place for a moment. Feel how you're standing. Feel where your shoulders are, how your arms are hanging at your sides, how your head is balancing on top of your spine, the weight on each foot. Maybe shift your weight a little left and right. And walk around, and we'll take a short break. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask or comments. Great. Yeah, it is a slightly more powerful lesson than some of the other ones. They often use a lot of ease, but this is it's a pretty big movement, right? Right. Yeah, yeah, that's okay. The abdominal muscles are really powerful and really they can work. They're okay. Were you doing some of this with us? A little bit. I mean, just doing it, talking about it. I visualize. I watch you all do it, and I get the benefit of it, even if I'm not doing the actual movements. It's cool. Yeah, I always feel different after teaching one of these lessons. Sure. Yeah, so we could just take like 3 to 5 minutes, maybe get a drink of water, and then we'll start something else. Because we're going till 8:30, is correct? Okay. Okay, great. Cool. All right. Good. Yeah, I have two more I'd like to do, but one's really brief. So.
It's very generous of you to teach a small class.
Oh yeah, it's kind of hard to lie on your back and stare up at these lights, huh? Mm. Yeah. 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 Remember one of my teachers saying lying on the floor in the middle of the day is kind of a revolutionary act. Mm. Yeah. 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 Yeah, cool. Can you hear those of you who are online, can you hear what everybody else is saying at all? Okay. James was just talking about how when you're lying down at night, you gain height, and you lose it during the day, and but lying down even for 15 minutes can actually restore a majority of that height, which is kind of cool. Can you hear Crystal talking?
Hi. Hi.
Can you hear that? No? Yeah?
Yes. Hi.
Okay, got it. They got it.
Yeah, I was just saying that I wish it was more socially acceptable to move around and lie down on the ground and stuff during the day and just in space in general. Oh, can we hear them? Can we hear the?
Yeah, if they're both on mute right now, but if they want to talk, they can.
If you want
if you want to say
talk,
anything, you can unmute yourself and
we
have a
we
monitor.
could hear you in the room, which
Maybe
is
and Bob.
revolution. Also,
They're remaining blissfully silent.
I'm gonna. Okay.
I commented that I really enjoyed the side bending variation.
Oh, cool. Yeah. But did you say it in the chat?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. I mean, I know you can't read it. But.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the chat, but okay. I like the side bending variation too. Oh, cool. Great. Oh, cool. I didn't know Larry was here. Hi, Larry. There's a couple of people who don't have their video on. Is that? Yeah. Cool. Okay. Great. Yeah. That's great. It'll come up. Yeah, totally. So for this lesson, we probably need to spread out a tiny bit because it involves like arm span. So just so you know, so you won't run into each other. Or you can also stagger. So somebody, one person's arms are higher than the other person's arms. There's plenty of space though. Great. That's great. Great. Should we go ahead and dive into another one? So lie on your back again. This is a mini Feldenkrais intensive. And again, just notice how you're lying, how you're contacting the floor. Sometimes these lessons, things shift. They continue to shift for a little while after the lesson happens. So you might notice there's some differences now from having moved around a little bit. So one thing I was contemplating was doing this next lesson just on one side, which sometimes, it leaves you a little bit lopsided feeling at the end, but that's sometimes an interesting sensation just to really compare. Does everybody feel comfortable with that? Yeah. Raise your hand if you really want it. Okay, good. It looks like everybody's good. Okay, great. So let's see. I'll let you choose the side. How about? So if you have an arm or shoulder that is having that just wants a little more freedom, put that one lie on your other side than that shoulder. That makes sense? And again, you're going to draw your knees up so they're kind of right in front of your hips and your feet down right below your knees, just kind of like 90-degree angles. Great. And you have your arms together out in front of you, palms together. So directly forward from your, like straight forward from your shoulders. And the hands are palms together, and you're just going to take your upper hand and slide it a little forward on the lower hand. or slide it, it'll go off the hand onto the floor a little bit and then come back. Just do that a few times. And you'll feel that, the shoulder moves by itself for a little bit, like the shoulder blade can actually slide and the collarbone moves in front. That's separate from the ribs. But if you keep moving forward, after a while, the ribs begin to follow as well. See if you can sense that. And just a really easy, gentle movement. You can think about like a musical phrase or something legato, so that you're not moving in starts, fits and starts, but it's just you're painting kind of a gentle line, a gentle phrase with the movement. And at any point along the way, the quality is such that you could just stop. You're not committed. You could stop and go back in the other direction. Great. So now bring that upper hand forward enough that you start to feel the ribs engage. And then from there, bring it away from the floor and in a big arc toward the ceiling and back behind you as much as is comfortable. And the constraint is that your knees stay together and on the floor. So don't let you can fall. Yeah, good. And then come back again so that your big arc, the hand is joining with the other hand. The knees stay together, the bottom knee stays on the floor. And the next time you do this, to just repeat this several times, the next time you do it, follow the hand that's lifting with your eyes. So you bring it a little forward until you feel the ribs engaging, and then begin to go up in a big arc. Follow the movement of the hand with your eyes. Your head will roll a little bit on the floor. They go into the back of the head. And just a smooth, easy arc. Think of like, holding a long, steady note. And notice without letting the knees separate. So it's easy to get ambitious about touching the floor behind you, right? So even if you can, maybe don't go all the way there right now. Just, yeah, some people have different flexibility than others. The knees stay together. Good. And think about the quality of the movement. Great. The next time you bring your arm up, just stop when the fingers are pointing toward the ceiling. And now in that position, just begin to reach the hand a little further toward the ceiling. So this will be a smaller movement. It'll be like a sliding of your shoulder blade across your ribs and back. And then let go again. So just bring it up toward the ceiling and then come back to where you started. It's just be a few inches, not a big movement. Yeah, and for some people, it'll be a bigger movement than others, just depending on the flexibility in your shoulders. And see if you can add in some rotation of the arm. So like the thumb will go down towards your feet or up toward the head as you do this lifting and lowering. Yeah, and of course, rest anytime you need to. So like you're twisting the arm around itself. And notice like which way makes it easier for the arm to go toward the ceiling and which way makes it feel easier for the arm to feel like it sinks back down. Try both ways of combining. So the hand can be nice and easy. Yeah, you don't have to stretch the fingers out too much. Great. And bring your hands in front of you together again and just rest. And now bring that upper arm a little forward and then away from the floor, back in a big arc behind you. See if that movement feels any different now. Great. And come back. Pause for a moment on your side. Bring your hand again toward the ceiling and follow it with your eyes. So your head is turning, your eyes are looking at the fingers. And pause there with looking at your hand. And now you're going to take your head and your arm in opposite directions. So as your arm goes back behind you, you look the other way. You turn the head the other way. Then as the arm goes and comes back in front of you, then you turn your head to look back where your arm was. And you don't have to go so far. You know, this might be a little bit more limiting, just the movement of the head. You don't want to stretch your neck or anything like that. And one thing you could experiment with in this movement is the ribs and the torso. Do they move together with the head, the movement of the head, or do they move together with the movement of the arm? You can do it both ways, so that the head and the ribs move in one direction and then just the arm and the shoulder move in the other direction, or the arm and the ribs and everything from the torso moves in the one direction and the head moves opposite. So just, yeah, for different people, different ones will be harder. Yeah, just try it both ways. And yeah, for yourself, just notice which is going to be easier for you. Great. Then bring everything forward again so the two hands are together in front of you. And now do what you were doing before. So the hand makes a big arc toward the ceiling and back behind you, and you're going to follow it with your head and your eyes. See if that's made any difference in the quality of the movement or the ease or the range. Then bring it back behind you again and just leave it there somewhere comfortably. Following it with the eyes. But then leave the arm behind you and begin to just roll the head left and right. Together with the eyes. Notice if your eyes they just tend to naturally look together with your head, right? Because that's what rolling the head is usually for, is to look in one direction or the other. So roll your head left and right a few times. With the arm behind you. And then the next time your eyes and head are pointed toward your hand that's behind you, leave them and just move the eyes. So the head stays where it is, and you're just going to very gently roll your eyes, move the eyes, let them glide left and right. There's a lot of nerves in the neck and organization of the muscles of the neck and head that are organized around the use of the eyes. So moving them in this way, differentiating them, can shift things around a bit. So think of moving, how smoothly you can move them. Then bring everything in front of you again. And try that original movement again of just making a big arc and move the head and eyes together with your hand. To see if this is changing at all in quality or ease or range. And as you keep doing this movement, just notice what's happening in the ribs. So with this rotation, the ribs don't have to move as a big block, right? They can move relative to each other. So you can start to notice there's a lot of complex movement that goes on in the ribs as your legs stay in the same rotation, but the upper part of the torso is turning relative to that. Great. Let that go and lie on your back for a moment. And notice if you feel a difference between the two sides of yourself. The two legs, how they're lying on the floor, two sides of the pelvis, the ribs on either side of the spine, two shoulders, the way the arms are lying. Maybe roll your head now, see what that's like. Great, and then leave the head in the middle. Rest for a moment. Then roll onto the same side again. Once more, lengthen the upper arm on the lower arm. Just slide it forward this time. Just see how that feels now. See what you can sense in the ribs when you do this movement. Sliding the arm forward and back a little bit. And then slide the arm forward and bring it in a big arc toward the ceiling and back behind you. And leave it behind you. And take both hands. So the back of your head is now more on the floor, more or less on the floor. Interlace your fingers and put your hands behind your head. And if you're comfortable, you're basically kind of facing toward the ceiling. Yeah. And lift the head with the help of both hands. So you're going to be looking toward your hip. That's your upper hip. Yeah. Lift with one Let's bring the elbows a little forward and lift the head, then bring it back down again. Just do that a few times. So this is a strange kind of like sit up, and if you think about what's happening in the ribs now, you're not only rotating, but you're doing some flexion as well. So it's a really complex movement, gets a lot of movement in the ribs. And if you feel so just do this lightly for a few more times. And then if you feel comfortable, you can leave the head lifted a little bit, and you can do that movement from the previous lesson. Expand the chest and then expand the abdomen. And then lower the head. Lift it a few more times. See if that made a difference, because that's a kind of a softening movement for the ribs. And try it again. See, expanding the chest, expanding the abdomen, that kind of seesaw movement with the head lifted a little bit. Great. And then bring everything off over to the side again. So the two hands are in front of you. Out in front of your shoulders, like you began. Yeah, just the original position. And make a nice big arc with that upper arm back behind you again. See how that feels now. Quality and the ease. And how easy it is to follow the hand with your eyes. Great. And lie on your back and rest. Again, notice the two sides of yourself, how they're contacting the floor. If you notice any differences. Notice the movement of your breathing. See if there's a difference from after the previous lesson till now in the movements of the breath. It feels a little different on one side than the other. And roll to your side again. And then come to sit from there. And come to stand. And take your time, yeah. And again, you don't need to rearrange clothes or anything. Just kind of see how you are now, how you've come to stand. How your arms are hanging. How your two shoulders feel. Two sides of your face. Maybe shift your weight a little bit left and right. Right, and walk around a bit. See how it feels to stand over one foot and stand over the other, because we did this lesson just on one side. You might feel a little asymmetrical. And, so your choice. Anybody want to do this on the other side now, or do you want to try something new? the next lesson actually will probably help even it out a little bit too. So, okay. Also, it transfers over, so it will change. It will shift for you no matter what. Like it's gonna be okay. Yeah. But you can think about like the different sides of your face too. Like they all look a little bit different. Yeah. Great. So let's take another 5-minute break. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I mean, sometimes people use pads or something, but yeah, it can just kind of hang a little bit. But yeah, that if you need something like that, that's fine. You can add some like a folded up pad or a folded up towel.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's one of my favorites. I like that lesson a lot. Yep, they're all here. I'm checking out the chat. Good. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah. They're all talking about which sides they chose based on their instruments. Mm. That tends to be the case, like this diagonal relationship between a shoulder and a hip tends to be, yeah. That's what Crystal's saying. She's had like one issue with one shoulder and then one with the opposite hip. Yeah. Or flute player too. Like you have one. I guess so. Yeah. Yeah. Flute is totally asymmetrical. Yeah, we're thinking maybe piano is the most symmetrical instrument. I'm commenting for the people online. Yeah. 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 So we're talking about string players and how they have more affinity with one with the left hand or the right hand. Mm.
Yeah. No, but like I say, I've met, worked with like great players who are up close. I mean, hopefully, yeah, I guess we're all about it.
Well, I think that, I think that the right side is often over for right-handers and left-handers are over, like your dominant hand. Like this one is always doing
Yeah.
more, and it's like it's like almost a gift that I have to use both my hands.
Right. Yeah. Because our dominant hand it definitely uses. Yeah.
Like even thinking that your left hand is usable, like it works, it does something.
Yeah. Yeah, Crystal is saying that it's a gift to have to play an instrument and use both hands and not just the dominant hand for everything. Yeah. You ready for more? Okay, we'll finish up with one more lesson. You're welcome. Thanks for coming. So lie on your back again. And again, notice how you're lying. How the back of yourself is contacting the floor. See if you think back to the very first time you laid down this evening and just what it felt like and how things are evolving through these short lessons. Notice your breathing. And then notice the length of your spine from the tailbone lengthening upward. So you have the sacrum, lumbar spine, lumbar vertebrae. Those are some really pretty large vertebrae. And then you have the thoracic vertebrae that the ribs are connected to. And then you have the cervical vertebrae, the ones in the neck. Just kind of trace up through the length of the spine. And you can think of, so Feldenkrais has this construct called the primary image, which is just thinking of yourself as a brief sketch. So you can think of the spine with all these details of the vertebrae, but you can also think of it as just a line, tailbone to the top of the head. So as if you were like, it's just this kind of cardinal line going up through the center of yourself. And it's a length and a direction. You could kind of think as if it's lengthening upward. And then from the base of the neck, you have two lines going out to the shoulder joints and then down the arms, lengthening outward and downward. Or you could put your arms out to the sides actually and just kind of feel them lengthening directly outward. And then from a little above the base of that central line, you have two lines going out through the hip joints and down through the knees and ankles and out through the toes, lengthening downward. So that spine line lengthens upward. The lines for each of your arms lengthen outward from the spine. And the lines for each of the legs lengthen downward. And there are series of lessons that have you kind of trace this image and move into different positions and track it while you're moving, while you're doing the movement. But I thought I would just start with thinking about the spine and that sense of lengthening upward. But I'm just giving you this brief sketch of this primary image idea because I find it really helpful when I'm playing an instrument. So if I just connect into my spine, that sense of lengthening upward, my arms that lengthen outward, and my legs that lengthen downward, I have my whole self that I'm bringing to what I'm doing with my instrument. So it's really quick engagement of the whole self. And often I notice that I learn things better when I do that. Just each brief sketch of it each time I lift up the flute to play. I learn faster. there's a lot more ease. Because if you think of length, it's really good. Length equals ease. You know, if you think about playing a difficult passage, do your muscles tend to shorten or lengthen? So if you just encourage length just through this practice, they can be, you're just encouraging ease and confidence too, I think. So just to encourage some gentle lengthening of the spine upward, bend your knees, put your feet on the floor, and see if you can just, find a comfortable position so that the knees are separate from each other and a little close, are they move them a little closer to yourself, a little farther away, so you feel like you can really press into the feet. Yeah, and if you press into the feet and push a little downward, you could feel that your spine will go a little bit upward. Does that make sense? You're not really lifting your pelvis away from the floor. You're just pushing and the head moves upward. And you could do a little bit of pulling in the opposite direction. So the spine moves downward, the chin goes toward the chest. And you're doing it from the feet. Does that make sense to everybody? If you have any difficulty with connecting with this idea, just raise your hand. So you're pushing into the feet. The pelvis will tilt a little bit, but it's the idea of the spine lengthening upward as you push the feet kind of down and away. Yeah, and if anybody who's here in person, I can just do a little bit of pressure through the knees. If you raise your hand, I can show you kind of the sense of the movement. Yeah. So as you get used to this movement, you can start to make it a little quicker. So you're just rocking. Just your spine is kind of sliding up and down. Yeah. And you don't have to lift the pelvis away. It'll tilt a little bit, but the main idea is that your head moves a little upward and downward. Anybody else who's here want some hands-on assistance? Are you good? Great. So try it a little more slowly again. And notice if you tend to press, as pretty much everybody here will, I imagine, a little more with one foot or the other. Like there's going to be some asymmetry, however subtle. So notice, maybe exaggerate it. So see if you can just press through that foot, not the other foot. And the spine lengthens upward, and then you let go. Good, and then add the other foot in again and see if you can, or maybe just press with the other foot. And notice, actually, yeah, just rest a minute. Bring your legs down and rest. Notice your sense of your spine now. See if you can sense it a little more clearly, that sense of lengthening upward. So try this again. When you're ready, you can bend your knees again and just press through one foot and then the other and see if you can sense how that force moves up through the spine. Pressing through one foot and then pressing through the other foot, it'll be a little bit different. In fact, yeah, whichever foot you're not pressing through, lengthen that leg. and just leave that leg long. So just try pressing through one foot. And you might go, your hip, you're thinking of pressing so that the movement is up toward the head, but the hip will lift a little bit on that side, to see what happens. Pressing down through the foot. See if you can feel that force go up towards your head. And then try the other foot and see how it's different. And on one side, some people, it kind of shears off to the side. And on the other side, it goes directly up to the top of the head, or it goes toward the shoulder, the opposite shoulder. It just depends on how you stand over each foot, how you balance yourself. And then again, try pressing through both feet. And you can kind of think about how those two directions, you can kind of triangulate, from using both feet and different pressure on both feet, you can access different parts of your spine. You could move that movement upward, aim it in different directions. Just experiment with that, play around with it a little bit, pressing through both feet in different ways. And then rest. Now, coming back to that same position, bending the knees, you could experiment a little bit with having the feet a little closer to yourself or farther away, a little closer to each other or farther away, to see what feels like the right position for them to be in to press up through the spine. And just begin to do this movement more quickly, kind of a rocking, like jiggling movement. So you can think about pulling down a little bit too. So if you pull with the feet downward, then you can rock back up and down with the spine. So both feet together, just like a jiggling. Not close to each other, but both feet pushing together. Yeah, great. And pretty easy and quick and just like jiggling. If you think about this, the spine goes upward through the ribs. The ribs are lying on the floor, and the spine isn't really lying on the floor. So the ribs, relative to the spine, because they're constricted by the floor a little bit, they're moving. The spine is moving up and down through the ribs. So it's a great massage, like to your whole spine, because there's these little joints. Each rib has a joint with the spine. So really think of the head going up and down, chin going to the chest. So this is only because it's happening because you're pushing through the ribs. So you're not really tilting the hips left and right. You're pushing up through the spine and then down through the spine. So they push through the feet and let go, push through the feet and let go. So it's just a rocking. Yeah, that's it. And you can pull from the feet a little bit, so you can go downward with the spine a little bit too, if that feels good. Yeah, make it this nice quick rocking movement. Now, as you continue that, bring your hands together straight in front of you from the shoulders. So palms together, making like a triangle and toward the ceiling. Great. And keep that rocking going. And begin to tilt this triangle without bending your elbows a little bit to the right. So your shoulders will roll. Keep the rocking going. And you'll see as one side of yourself lifts off the floor, you'll be more on the ribs on the right side. Hands stay together. Elbows stay straight. Yeah, so your shoulders really have to lift away. Good. And then come back and then tilt the triangle to the other side, but keep this rocking going. Hands stay together. So yeah, but in order to tilt the whole triangle, one shoulder comes away from the floor. And only tilt it as far as you want to comfortably. Yeah. Great. Rest when you want to, but otherwise just continue to turn this triangle, tilt this triangle left and then right, and just feel how the movement goes up through the ribs on one side and then on the other side. Great. Let that go and rest. And let your legs be long and your arms be long. Notice how you're contacting the floor now. How the two legs, think back to the beginning of the evening and how the legs were contacting the floor, how they are now. Two sides of the pelvis, the low back, the ribs on either side of the spine. Shoulder blades. Roll your head a little left and right, see how that feels. And then leave the head in the middle and notice the movement of your breathing. And then just bring your attention to those 5 lines. So the tailbone to the top of the head, just sketching the line of the spine. And then from the base of the neck, 2 lines going out to the arms, lengthening outward. And from a little above the tailbone, 2 lines going out from the lower part of the spine through the hip joints, knees and ankles and out your toes. Just see if you can hold that schematic of like 5 lines in your mind, really slowly, just kind of tracking the movement of the lines. Roll to your side and come to sit and then come to stand. And if the movement starts to disturb that image for yourself, then just go a little slower. And stand in place for a moment. Just see how you're standing. You could sway a little from your right side to your left side. Just see if you can sense the balance over each foot. Think of the length of the spine in this position, this relative to gravity. So the spine is just, it supports you. And that movement of like, lengthening upward in outside of gravity when you're on your back, that's basically the movement of the spine supporting you in gravity, right? It's like how your spine counteracts gravity. So if you sense your head a little bit differently sitting on top of your spine now. Great, and walk around. See how it feels to walk. And thanks a lot for coming. And Crystal, thanks a lot for having me, for inviting me.